Charlie Beer here. I'm going in for my day four sessions from South by Southwest. I'm an undergrad marketing major, BIA minor. And for the first session I went to, we went to the DEI in tech, Too Little Too Late. It was a discussion on um, just DEI in the tech industry specifically and DEI as a whole, and kind of the problems that we're currently facing, even though it should have a bit more widespread exception from based on what we see across the industry. The people that were talking at it were Carrie Finch, who founded Also Known As, which I wasn't really sure exactly what the platform was. They haven't gone into it, but she's also the founder of She Says. Yano Joseph, who was the head of ecosystem strategy at TNW Financial Times, and Rachel De Vriend, who is the head of innovation and research and head of innovation, research, and scouting for TNW Financial Times. And they kind of brought up that they need to answer the question of whether it's too late for us to like deliver this meaningful change in the industry to the same level that we've seen elsewhere. And one thing that I really found interesting that I hadn't really heard in a lot of the other DEI talks that I've been to is that they really dislike the term DEI for what it's doing to the industry because instead of being an overall thing we're trying to improve upon or a concept to grow with, we're seeing it as just another checkbox on your spreadsheet is like, we need to accomplish these things. Oh, easy checkbox, we've done our DEI work, but they're not like actually looking for growing their DEI or making a meaningful difference a lot of the times. They're just looking at, oh, did we do DEI? Check, which isn't how we should be monitoring it. It should be something we're constantly trying to improve and never just checking off as something we've completed. Um, and they were talking a lot about how one of the problems on that same vein of companies trying to check off a box is that a lot of places don't know how to measure DEI statistics. They try to send out like forums that are like, oh, do you feel included in the company? Do you feel this is happening? Do you like this? And then what they talked about was that a company they were mostly based in the UK, and they were talking about how a company, I think it was in Norway, had first asked all their employees the regular DEI questions. Do you feel included? What areas can we improve on? And they didn't receive substantial information from that. It was very lackluster and not very helpful for them, which I found interesting because I haven't been at a place where I've had to fill these out, but I've always assumed that it wasn't something that you would fill out like, well, not lying, but not informing them of problems that exist. I thought it was something that would actually be helpful. And what they said is that company then submitted a form asking not if you're comfortable at the company or anything, but how comfortable you are even being asked those questions in a professional setting. And I found it interesting that most people said they're very uncomfortable. They thought it could impact their or their impact their job standing and potential future for promotions and stuff if they spoke out against the company. So they didn't like to talk about what was actually going on. And that's a huge problem because if we can't even discuss what the problems are within a company, it's nearly impossible that we're going to find a way to actually solve those problems in the long term. Um, and then the other thing they said was going on the same notion that people aren't comfortable speaking out against certain things. It's also been, at least for a long time, we're starting to change it now, but most of the current adults in the workforce lived their lives being told to fit in as children. They were told to like hide their differences, be a part of the group. And obviously that's changing now. We're much more accepting of differences all across the board, whether it's on a physical, personal, emotional, anything like that. We're much more accepting of differences between people today. And I think that will help a lot for the future of DEI. But the problem is the current people in the workforce, a lot of people have lived their whole lives being told to fit in, to not be different, to not show you what makes you unique, um, because they were told that might make you seem weird or something. And it's almost as though they have to intrinsically change who they are as a person at a internal level before they can even start like using their own opinions to inform change in a grander scale, which is definitely not something I had thought about at all. I think I grew up in the beginning of the times where they were expressing our individuality and stuff. They were all in their mid to late 30s and were discussing how in their time growing up, they were told they were supposed to be fitting in with the crowd. They weren't supposed to be standing out and being different. And that caused immense problems for DEI as a whole because there's so many people now that whatever their differences were, they've been trained to live their whole lives as though they were just one of the crowd, one of the people working together. And that's something we need to break away from at a systemic level. There's so many problems that we need to just break away from so we can actually set up the baseline stuff that'll help DEI flourish. And it's something that the one thing I really didn't agree with them on is that they were talking a lot about how there's the unconscious bias problem, which is an obvious problem. I'm not saying that unconscious bias isn't a problem, but they were suggesting that governments should be the one to cure this unconscious bias. And while I agree that there needs to be something that has to happen in terms of fixing unconscious bias, because it's not something that we can easily just stop thinking about. It's something in the back of your head that you don't even realize you are thinking. It's something that was put on you by your experiences in life or where you grew up or something like that. It's not something you can easily just change. But they were suggesting how they think it should be the government's job to start fixing this. And while I agree that it is the government's job to help DEI flourish as a whole, they need to be helping everyone across the board in any way that they can. I don't, I personally am not a big fan of government running education or forcing people to think a certain way. I love free speech, not because I think that anyone should be able to say what they want, but because I think opinions are something that we all share, and being able to hear another person's opinion can really drastically change your opinion on something. But if we start trying to cure out all of these differences that we have in our heads because we want to have a more DEI centered life, then we may, in the long run, lose so much of what makes us unique that isn't the unconscious bias and problems there. But it was a really great talk and I really enjoyed it. Thank you.